baby girl. Happy. You gonna come out?
Hey. Need a hand? Should I continue filming?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Well, hi there. This is a snake. And this species is my very favorite species of snake in the whole world. And this individual is one of only 6 snakes that has ever bitten me. I've been bitten by more humans, despite the fact that I interact with snakes almost every day. I travel the world catching snakes. I've handled the longest viper, longest venomous snake, and the heaviest snakes on the planet. I've been doing snake presentations in schools and at other events for over a dozen years. And interestingly, until very recently, nobody had ever been bitten by an animal at any of my presentations. Until recently. Because somebody was bitten a little while back. Fortunately, that person was me. If somebody's going to be bitten at one of my presentations, I would prefer for it to be me, and it was by one of the kids. So even at my traveling reptile presentations, I have been bitten by more people than snakes. Because snakes are delightful creatures if you understand them well. Like I said, I have only been bitten by 6 snakes. Never by a wild snake, despite handling them all my life, and only 2 times by snakes I was watching. The other times were when I was engaging with other people while I was handling the snake and wasn't paying attention to the snake's body language. So today, I want to look at some viral clips of snake bites to see if I can identify what went wrong and how the bite could have been avoided. So let's start with that clip that we just watched. This was the clip that originally made me want to make this video. So this is a reticulated python. I have 4 reticulated pythons. This one, Athena, was my very first. I've never been bitten by one, but this girl very nearly bit me on the face. I'll tell that story before this video is over. And the truth is that all of my reticulated pythons, except for one, have bitten somebody who works here. But I don't think that anybody has been bitten more than once, because it's easy to avoid once you know how to read these snakes. The truth is that I could probably get bitten by all 4 reticulated pythons every day if I wanted to. These snakes grab things like birds and bats in flight. They have pits on their lips called labial pits that detect infrared light, which is emitted by pretty much everything that's warm. So they effectively see heat. And if you're going to grab a bat or a bird in flight, you can't spend too much time thinking about it when something warm goes by. They need to grab it and figure out what it is later. Retics are some of the only snakes that I have that regularly strike at the glass when I walk by. And yet, they're among my very sweetest snakes when they know they're not being fed. Here at the reptile room, we inform them that they're going to be handled by petting them with a snake hook. If I would be to just reach in and grab one, I'd probably get bitten. Now, the exact mistake that this lady made is the mistake that was made with our reticulated python Apollo when he was younger, the time that he bit somebody. I was watching from across the room and I was thinking, surely she knows that that snake is about to bite her. Nope. So what did I see? I saw a snake that was way too interested in a person. Snakes generally only stare that intently at a person if they think they're being fed or they are afraid. Both are situations where a snake might bite you if you get too close. Accompanied with a steady approach like that, it is almost certainly a feeding response. That snake thinks it might be feeding time, and it will grab the first warm thing that gets close enough to grab, which is why the snake then proceeds to coil this woman. I've never had this experience because I generally don't put myself in a situation to get bitten by a hungry snake. I'm sure that this lady was thinking the same thing that the person at the reptile room was thinking when Apollo approached her this way. She thought they were having a moment. He was coming to her for attention, the way an emerald tree skink would. But I will tell you, when it comes to snakes, what I want to see is only a moderate amount of interest in me. If it follows my every move, that's too much interest. I need to change the situation before attempting to get too close to that snake. Because as much as my retics will do the same thing every time you open the enclosure, if you let them, as soon as you communicate to them that this isn't feeding time, they become some of my most trustworthy snakes. And just for the record, if you're ever wrapped by a snake that size or larger, you do not want to be alone. That is potentially life-threatening. So don't do it. Always have somebody with you that would know how to save your life if saving were required, which will include things like bending the tail or putting hand sanitizer in the mouth of the snake, none of which is pleasant. So hopefully you don't ever have to have your life saved from a giant snake. But if you do, it's good to have someone with you that can save you. This video is sponsored by our friends at Raycon. It's that time of year again. Whether you're heading back to school yourself or you're a parent getting your kids ready for the new school year, Raycon's bone conduction headphones are a great back-to-school essential. They're especially great for student athletes or anyone with an active lifestyle. And right now, you can grab them for 20% off. I use my Raycon headphones every day for all my calls, listening to podcasts, watch all of my YouTube videos, or nearly all of them, through my Raycons. They are just the best, and these are incredible. Whether you're out for a run, walking to class, or just getting things done, the open-ear design lets you stay aware of traffic and the world around you, so you can enjoy music, podcasts, or phone calls safely. They're lightweight and comfortable enough to wear for hours, and they stay put. With up to 13 hours of battery and an IP68 waterproof and dustproof rating, they're built to keep up with everyday life. The bone conduction headphones are the perfect back-to-school companion. Click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/ClintBC to get 20% off. A big thank you to Raycon for sponsoring this video.
These snakes scare me.
We're about to milk the eastern brown, which is arguably the most dangerous snake species in Australia.
He's a wild boy.
Ooh, that is a big snake. Oh boy, yeah, no, he does not look real happy, does he?
These guys are renowned for just going crazy.
It's interesting the way he curls his body into, ooh, that was close. You okay? You good?
Yeah. All right.
Okay, you good?
All good. He's not even the craziest. He's one of the quietest eastern browns we've got.
I mean, that was probably the most intense, fastest move I've ever seen a human make. He was all the way up by your face when he swung his body up. That was insanity.
He came mouth open at my face like, these things do not muck around.
I'm glad that didn't connect. Having other people in the room is a lot less helpful if you're bitten on the face by a big eastern brown snake. I just got to find eastern browns in the wild a little earlier this year. What a spectacular and frightening snake. So I would say that there were a number of mistakes made here. The biggest one being, I don't know what happened to his snake hook. He was handling this snake with proper tools. He had it by the tail and was controlling the front of the snake with a hook. It isn't perfectly safe, but handling large elapid snakes is not a perfectly safe activity. Now, I will say that he had a better angle than I did, but no matter where I pause this video, I can't see any evidence that the snake had its mouth open. It seems very plausible that this snake was just trying to flee, not bite. But it definitely shows the level of athleticism that these snakes possess. If it wants to bite, it has the physical tools. So thing number one that I would recommend is that you too should have the proper physical tools. In this case, the tools required to have the most control possible in this situation. Having a huge athletic snake like this with its tail in one hand and the other hand just waving in the breeze is not a good situation. And I will tell you, if you're ever in a situation like this, don't hold the snake off the ground like this. I do think that the snake only wanted to flee, but with the snake off of the ground, the only leverage it has is your hand. Meaning that the only direction it can pull itself is towards your hand. If you put the first 30% of the snake on the ground, you can limit its mobility, essentially using its body as a leash, but you give it the option to attempt to crawl away instead of having no options other than to use itself as a whip that can only go in your direction. Many snake species lack the athleticism to pull themselves all the way up to your hand, but this is clearly not the case for this species. Plus, the more a snake feels supported and like it has options, the more relaxed that it will be, and the less likely it will be to use the bite option. The truth is that reticulated pythons, like we talked about before, and a handful of other giant constrictors are the only snakes on Earth that view something the size of a human as potential prey. So they will only bite out of fear. And other than these few giant constrictors, there is no snake on Earth that has a chance of winning a fight with a human. If you decide to stomp a black mamba, a king cobra, an eastern brown, or any other venomous snake on the planet to death, there is nothing that it can do to stop you. You might die within the next few hours or days, but that will be of little consolation to the snake that died right here, right now. What I'm saying is that if you give most snakes the option to avoid a fight with you, they will gladly accept it. However, by the time that a predator has grabbed your tail and lifted you completely off of the ground, you're running out of other options pretty fast. If you see me handling venomous snakes, like this tiger rattlesnake, which has some of the nastiest venom of any North American snake, you will notice that I try to keep most of the snake on the ground where it will be supported. I use the hook to limit its strike distance, and I hold the tail as gently as possible. The more you support the snake from below, and the less you restrain it, the more relaxed it will become, and the less likely it will be to attempt to fight. Even if it's uncomfortable with the situation, it is much more likely to attempt to run than to stand and fight. Fight is always a last option for a venomous snake. So I would say that the mistakes here were not using proper tools, holding it completely off of the ground, limiting its options, and possibly underestimating its physical capabilities. The last one was the reason that I got my worst snake bite of all time. And that experience has very much led me to rethink the way that I handle venomous snakes. I'll talk more about that too here in just a minute.
No, no, no.
Okay, so this is almost identical to my first snake bite, which is one of my 2 snake bites that I have received from a snake I was watching. This is a rat snake. Mine was an Everglades rat snake. He only did this to me one time, and if I weren't watching him, I might not have noticed that it happened. I don't think it broke the skin at all, though the most blood I have ever personally seen be shed by a person from a snake bite was from a bite very similar to this one, just from an emerald tree boa. I have great footage of the aftermath. Unfortunately, it would get this video demonetized, but I will include it in this week's Patreon Extras video, plus a much deeper dive into each of these snake bites. So you can hop over there if you really want to see it. But this is an example of a lazy bite. Most of the time I tell people that snakes will only bite if they think that they're getting food or they're afraid. Both usually preceded by a snake that is too interested in you, too locked on, just like we discussed before. But there is another situation, this one, which I think is more related to curiosity than it is to fear or food. This is when a snake explores something with its mouth. This is something that the overwhelming majority of my snakes never attempt, but some species and individuals are more prone to it than others. It's something that we're working on with our black-headed python, as they're notorious for exploring objects in this way. And ours has tried a few times to do this, but since we know what to look for, he's yet to successfully bite anyone. I want you to notice, first of all, the tongue flicks that this snake is doing. Those quick little tongue flicks are a sign of a curious snake, and that is generally a great sign when handling a snake. But when a curious snake does what this snake does here, which is where it angles its face right towards you, maybe even nuzzles you with its nose a little bit and thinks for a moment, there is a possibility that it will try to gather a bit more data by gently biting you. Snakes only have so many ways to gather information, and putting it in their mouth is one of those ways. If you're paying close attention to the snake, and you know what they look like when they're considering such a bite, it can usually be avoided. But it is one of the types of bites that worries me the most when people, like my friend Tyler Nolan, handle dangerously venomous snakes like they were not dangerous snakes. The truth is that most of my snakes have never bitten me, and if they were venomous, that would still be the case. It's easy to help a snake realize that it isn't feeding time. It's easy to raise a snake so that it isn't afraid of people, which is why Tyler can handle his king cobra the way that he did in our recent TikTok Reacts video. But if you watch that video carefully, you'll notice that Tyler is constantly watching that head. That snake knows that it isn't getting food, and it clearly isn't afraid. King cobras are excellent at letting you know that they're afraid. But Tyler is constantly watching out for the snake getting its nose on his body. I suspect that many of the cuts in this video are also so that he could move the snake's head, as they come right when I start to get nervous. And even though it wouldn't matter nearly as much as it would with that king cobra, this is still one of the main behaviors that our staff here at Clint's Reptile Room are looking out for when other people are handling our snakes. And we will frequently stick a couple of fingers under the neck and chin of a snake that is staring a bit too intently, and change the subject of what it's thinking about.
Why he's so PG? It's anytime you get an argument with him, like you feel me, you just buy a steak. Look, he bit him again. Look, he bit him again. Look, it don't hurt. He's biting him again.
Okay, by now you can probably start to identify what's going on here. That is a snake that's afraid. It is doing a serious defensive display. Like I said, snakes do not want to fight you. They will do whatever they can do to avoid a fight. And scaring you off is a great option if they can't hide or flee. Now you'll notice that he is holding the snake in such a way that its strike range is restricted. This snake cannot bite his face. But since he's using a hand instead of a hook, there are still parts of his body that are within the strike distance of the snake, which is why he's doing what he's doing with his head. This is a technique that I have seen a lot of people do with cobras and king cobras, and it works very well with those snakes. Kings in particular climb a hook and are often too long for you to be outside of their reach, even when you're handling them with a hook. However, you can, potentially, though I'm not recommending it, handle them where you shorten their strike distance with your arm instead of a hook, by keeping their attention on your head, which is out of range. My recommendation is generally to keep their attention on a whole different person who is much farther out of their range and use a hook. But if you're alone and you don't have a hook, this can work. The thing about cobras and king cobras is that they only strike down. They raise themselves up and then strike down. That is why you can kiss a grumpy cobra on the top of its head. Well, this snake, which I think is a king rat snake, but albinos are always tough to identify, doesn't strike this way. They strike more sideways from an S position. So while it missed in its attempt to bite his face, the momentum carried it not down, but to the side and right into the arm that was limiting its strike range. Good thing king rats are not venomous. Obviously, the real Tarzan doesn't mind being bitten by snakes. But if it were me, I would have that snake on the ground holding it by the tail and giving it the option to attempt to flee. I would slowly attempt to support more and more of its weight with a gentle and open hand from below, watching for signs of a snake relaxing before moving up closer and closer to the front. It's amazing how much a snake's behavior can be changed simply by the way that you touch it. A soft, supportive, but minimally restraining hold will relax almost any snake. And if it's this grumpy and up in the air, a lot can be said for holding still. I have friends that have been bitten by more snakes while I was holding them than I have been bitten by snakes in my entire life. As in, they hand me some grumpy snake, I just hold still and don't make any sudden movements. If I need to adjust the snake, I bring the snake to my other hand, not my hand to the snake. They care about this difference. And I have never been bitten by any of their grumpy snakes. Then they come back for the snake and almost always get bitten by it. Okay, let's watch one more video and then I will tell you the 2 stories that I promised.
A man's relaxing walk through the park turned into a nightmare when he stepped on something that shouldn't have been there, and you won't believe what happened next.
Oh, no. Excuse me. Could you go get a ranger? I just got bit by a copperhead. Oh, not good. Oh, I'm shaky. Crap, I don't know what to say or think right now. These aren't supposed to be here. I think I stepped on its tail. I wanted to make sure I contained it in case you guys have to remove it or whatever. Yeah.
You to come around this way.
Gotcha.
And then I want you to sit down.
Gotcha.
You're gonna stay calm. Where were you bitten?
Right here on my leg.
Right here on your leg. Need you to lie down.
You alright, bud? You good now?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
Well, congratulations. You're the first person bit by a copperhead in a Baltimore County park in 25 years.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Keep the snake under the bucket and keep an eye on it.
Okay, and just for the record, I have so many more videos, so let me know if you want me to do this again. But this is the kind of bite that can easily happen. So this guy's out hiking and he stepped on a copperhead. Fortunately, copperhead venom is not nearly as nasty as that of many other vipers, but this is still a big deal. And copperheads bite a lot of people, at least compared to other North American venomous snakes. Mostly because they're very well camouflaged and don't have a way to tell you that you're getting too close. As we've hopefully made very clear by now, most snakes do not want a fight unless they do not have any other good options. And when you're standing on a snake, it's pretty low on options. Rattlesnakes have a much larger range than copperheads, but they fortunately have a way to tell you that you're getting uncomfortably close. I would say that most rattlesnakes that are found by people are found only because they rattled. Foolishly, people often attempt to kill them once they discover them, which opens you up to a much higher chance of being bitten, but also selects against rattlesnakes that warn you when you get too close, which has the potential to turn rattlesnakes into copperheads. Not literally, but when it comes to the probability of a bite like this one. The only mistakes made here were mostly that he didn't see the snake. Copperheads are super hard to see in their native habitat. And he wasn't wearing any sort of protective clothing, which probably most people are not. This can totally happen, so watch your step. You generally won't die in the United States if you're bitten by a venomous snake. The odds of that are very remote, but it will be expensive and unpleasant. Okay, so I've got two stories. First one is about how I almost got bitten in the face by Athena, my first reticulated python. And you noticed Athena is nowhere near as big as a mainland reticulated python. She is a super dwarf reticulated python from Reach Out Reptiles, and I love her. But maybe a year or less than a year after we first got her, she tried to force her way through a gap that she could not fit her head through and wound up cutting herself on top of the head. In fact, her head looked all kinds of mangled when I first found her. I tried to get an emergency vet appointment and I couldn't. But, you know, she tried so hard to push herself through there that she'd moved where the skin was on her head. And so, like, snakes have eyelids that are fused closed, and she pulled that back, and so her eyes looked bad. Everything, she looked terrible. She looked like she was gonna die. And fortunately, within just a few minutes, her head kind of returned to its normal shape and all the skin moved back into place, but she still had that wound on top of her head. I was still really worried about her, and a day or two later, I opened up her enclosure to check on her, and I was just wanting to get a really good look at her head, and you know, I was just kind of looking around, and then I saw her turn and look up at me, and I was just a few inches away from her, and I was like, you idiot. And that's when she struck, because I'm just a warm thing now in her enclosure. She struck, and I bent over backwards like the Matrix, and that open mouth was just like an inch or two in front of my face the whole way as I bent over backwards. And fortunately, I was able to bend farther than she could strike, and she came back. There was no question for me that she came at me with an open mouth. There was no doubt about that. And so that is how I was very nearly bitten on the face by Athena, just because I was stupid. I wasn't actually intending to interact with her. I just wanted to check on her. But I certainly put myself in a position where I easily could have been and probably should have been bitten by a reticulated python. The worst bite I've ever had was actually from this snake over here. Let me grab her for you. So this is Minnie. You're very curious, Minnie. Minnie is a Brazilian rainbow boa, and Brazilian rainbow boas, like all rainbow boas, they're nested right in with the anacondas. They are very, very, very strong snakes for their size. And Minnie had no history of violence at this time, though she has bitten a few people. If she bites me today, it wouldn't blow my mind. But she's generally a pretty great snake. And I was showing her to somebody. So I told you my first ever snake bite from a snake I was paying attention to was that rat snake lazy biter. Well, this was snake number 2, the snake that I underestimated. So I've already explained that our snakes are tap trained. So I pet them with a snake hook, and that lets them know that I'm not feeding them. And that is how I generally get this snake out. The main snakes that I don't pick up that way are ball pythons. Ball pythons are like the least athletic snakes ever. And so I still pet them, but I will just pet them somewhere far away from their head. Basically, unless you pet them where their head is facing, they're not going to bite you. They just couldn't, even if they wanted to. They're just not athletic enough to do it. Well, this girl was in her enclosure and she was spread out over the whole thing. So her head was extremely far away from her tail. And so I just kind of thought, well, I think I can be lazy. There was somebody visiting the room that wanted to see her. And so I just went in to pet her very, very, very far away from her head with my hand. And she immediately just whipped around and grabbed me on this part of my hand right here. She's the largest snake that I have ever been bitten by. And it really still wasn't a big deal at all. But it was very sobering for me because I did not dream that she could do that. She came around so fast and from so far away with precision accuracy. And I immediately thought, do I ever do that with venomous snakes? Do I ever touch them like that just because I think they can't do the move that she just did? And I realized I don't. I always use my snake hook to limit their strike distance. But it was a very good reminder that there can be a difference between what you think a snake can do and what a snake can actually do. And now I never, never, never am lazy with her or anything essentially except for ball pythons and maybe a handful of colubrid snakes. When it comes to this girl though, I always use the snake hook. As far as how bad the bite was, it was the worst snake bite I've ever had. Got some photos of it if I can find them. I will say if I had to wake up on a given morning and I had to choose, I knew something bad was going to happen to me today. Either I'm going to have an identical bite from Minnie here to the bite that I had that day, or I'm going to get a paper cut. I would pick the snake bite. It was nowhere near as unpleasant as a paper cut. And the truth is, you know, unless it's a venomous snake or a very large snake, snakes have very, very sharp teeth, but their teeth are not made for cutting out pieces of flesh or tearing, doing mechanical damage. They're just for holding on. So they're very, very sharp. Their jaws are very, very weak for an animal this size because their jaws are all about flexibility and not about strength. And so they'll bite, it'll bleed a little, and then like 20 minutes later, for most snake bites, you'll go, which arm was it that I was bitten on? Because they just seal right back up. They're no big deal. And her bite was no big deal. But I'm still careful with her because I don't like getting bitten by snakes. So again, let us know if you'd like to see a follow-up to this video. And as always, like and subscribe. We hope to see you real soon.
If I ever am recording while you're getting bit, I won't ask if I should keep recording. I'll just keep recording.
Yes. I appreciate that. Because
even if you're like, Jason, help!
Save me.
Record.